hitting the buzzer. After returning to his hometown, Austin has recently joined us to grow his skills and find like-minded people in groups like ours. He's given us Icebreaker to tell us more about himself and talk about a board game we all know well. Please welcome Toastmaster Austin Moore.
Good morning, Toastmasters.
Good morning.
Can I get a raise of hands? Who has played the game of life? Board game? Okay. Did anybody learn anything from that game? Anything that's brought you here today? No. I'll be honest, I've never played this game of life. Not the board game, at least. But we've all played the same game. I grew up as a young boy riding dirt bikes, going fishing, camping, climbing trees, hurting myself on more than a few occasions. And there was not much mentorship. I found that mentorship much later on when I started playing my true game of life. I grew up working since I was 9 years old in a construction household. When you're this tall with this much energy, you're put to work, or else you have to pay a daycare, and nobody wants to do that. So from a very young age, all I knew to do was work and have fun. It wasn't until later on in high school when I started understanding what this game of life is. I experienced my first loss. My older brother passed away. He was my mentor and he was my best friend. From then on, I maybe had a little bit too much fun, paid attention to the wrong things, and then I had a life pivot. I pivot into college. I was the first of my family to go to college, and I was the first of my family to break out of our bubble. We're all in our bubble. Some bubbles are bigger than others. Mine has to be big because I'm 6'4", 240 pounds. It's a big bubble. But I bust out and I started realizing things about people. I started making new friends that were nothing like the friends I grew up with. I started straying away from old. I started realizing more in people about my travels. I landed my dream job. After growing up with a 64 GTO in the garage, I loved cars. Whenever it was running, we would take it out for a spin, but it wasn't running very often. My dad wasn't the best mechanic. He just knew how to lay block. So after a few years in college, I moved up to Detroit, and this was my first life pivot on my board game of life. I was living in Detroit, learned more and more about people, traveled, went to Peru, Europe a few times, and I realized during these challenges of coming from a blue-collar household to corporate life and traveling abroad, that people all value two things. We all want to be connected, and we all want to be valued. Growing up in a family where you don't communicate much, this was a big lesson for me. Huge. It taught me to enjoy people more. So as I'm working through GM, I'm in this program to help technical teams and learn to manage technical teams. My dream job, I'm launching Cadillacs, Corvettes, Camaros, trucks. I was on cloud nine. I was making decent money. It was great. I was traveling, making amazing friends from all over the country. Then life pivot number 2 came. My sister calls me one night. She says, "Austin, you need to step out of the house, and I need to tell you something." My younger brother, Devin, had passed. After consoling with my roommates, I booked a flight down back to Florida, and I prayed by my brother's bedside for 6 days while he was on life support. The doctors told us he would never be coming back and we'd have to let him go. My family was a wreck. I was a wreck. I went to therapy. It's huge help. My father, as you can imagine, losing 2 boys, was also a wreck. I felt it was my duty to return home and console my family. After leading technical teams for 4 years, I said, "Okay, Austin, prepare yourself, talk to people, figure it out." I was having nightmares. It was not good. Then I come back home, get a job here at Nautique, boat company right around the corner. And I start trying to lead my family to happiness when I realized that's not leadership. Leading a family to healing, you have to work through the grief, through the pain, with them, pulling them along the way, motivating each other to do things like reach out to therapy. It's highly important. Here we are 3 years later, and my dad, a construction worker that's owned his own construction crew for the last 30, 40 years, blue collar, he's actually going to therapy now. I never would have thought, never in my life. After many mornings, calls on the way to work, after long talks at the oyster bar, I love oysters, so does he. We bond. He is finding a better place. We're going on family trips, starting to enjoy life again with the family that we have, and we've become even closer. And now, I'm at my third pivot. I own 2 companies, a product development and manufacturing solutions company, and an AI software that helps you sell and make deals. It's exciting. The conversations I have with people, they're excited. I'm excited. I gotta simmer down sometimes. But I've realized that I've allowed myself to go through the motions, learn as I should, bond with my family, and I've started to learn more about business, marketing, sales, something they don't teach in engineering school. You know, a nerd becoming a businessman, it's a hard pivot. But I've made that pivot, and I've learned to make my mark on life. If there's one thing that I can tell you, life has ups and downs, twists and turns, highs and lows. But from learning and hardships, you grow, and I would not want to play any other game of life other than my own. Thank you.